Let's talk about books, baby. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my April reading wrap-up. In April I read 7 books and there was a 1 DNF. So I'm going to be adding 2 things to my monthly reading wrap-ups that I haven't previously. One is changing from a 5-star rating system to full and half stars, because I think that gives a little bit more nuance, because sometimes I am stuck between a 4 and a 5 or whatever, and that I think half star could really make the difference. I'm from a Goodreads mindset where they only give you full stars, so that's what I always rated my books. But I think here I want the half star option as well. So that will be a change in my rating system. And then also I'm going to share my stats for the month. I have them, I keep track of them, I have for a long time, but I've never shared them on my reading wrap up. The first book I read was Sanditon by Jane Austen and Kate Riordan. So this was my prompt pull for under 250 pages, and so I kind of messed this up a little bit, but in a good way. It was a happy mess up. So the original Sanditon was like 100 and something pages because Jane Austen passed away before she could finish it. So it was an incomplete novel. So the incomplete novel is under 250 pages. But Kate, this author, finished it, and that's what the show is based on and everything. So I ended up reading the finished version. So basically there was Jane Austen had a co-author, and yeah, it's a classic and it's a romance, as Jane Austen's novels are, but obviously it's much different because it was written by a contemporary person, like a contemporary author. So, but anyway, what it's about is our main character, Charlotte Haywood, and she lives a quiet village life. She's definitely not of the upper class. So she's not super poor, but she's kind of I don't even know, lower middle class maybe. Anyway, and so this couple comes through town and they help them out. They I think they're wagon brakes or something like that. Their carriage, not their wagon, their carriage, because they are high class, highfalutin people. And as a thank you for helping them out, they offer to take Charlotte with them to their resort. They're trying to build a seaside resort, and kind of like Brighton. And so she goes with them, and it's her chance to kind of get out of the small village she's lived in her whole life. So she goes. Their gift is to basically have her as a guest there as they build the seaside resort. So when she arrives in Sanditon, she meets this guy's brother named Sidney, and he actually relies on him heavily for bringing the highfalutin people of London. He's gonna help bring all these notable people to Sanditon to help make it known to other high class people that this is where you should come for vacation and come to the sea and all of this, and also helping him secure loans with banks and all this stuff. So they have an interesting relationship, but she has a kind of an Elizabeth and Darcy relationship in the beginning for sure. It doesn't start off on the greatest foot, but yeah, so they get to know each other. And there's also the whole community that you learn about in this book. And yeah, it's basically the brother, not Sidney, I can't remember his name, is just trying to he's put everything on the line, financially, everything, emotionally, to make Sanditon a seaside destination. So that's really what drives the book, is that he is just given all of it to this, and it might pay off, it might not. He might lose a lot, and Charlotte is invested in this project as well. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed it, but it was very obvious. If you had just read it and you didn't know that it was an unfinished book by Jane Austen, you'd be like, doesn't really seem like Jane Austen. The characters just do things that not wildly out of place, but things that Austen would just never write in her time. Don't think that it was very true to an Austen novel, even though I did enjoy it. So keep that in mind. If you're a Austen purist and you really love it, and you love her works the way they are, this might not be for you. But if you can kind of, maybe you've read some retellings and you like that kind of stuff, you like the feel of Austen, but not like you're not a purist, this could be interesting to you. Like, this could be a good read. I did enjoy it, but I was never once like under the impression, like in my mind while I was reading it, that this was like a purely Austen compilation, like a novel. But setting all that aside, I really liked the story, so I gave Sanditon, the completed novel, a 4 out of 5 stars. The second book I read was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the first book in the Crescent City series, and this is a fantasy, romantasy. It's her newest series, and I had taken, it came out in 2020, and it has taken me that long to start this series, which I have talked about in a few videos. I did a Buzzy book reading vlog on this book, so you can kind of in real time, when I'm reading it, follow along with what I thought. And yeah, it's very interesting for a Sarah J. Maas book. It's very contemporary fantasy. It's urban fantasy, so they have cell phones and clubs and drugs, just things you wouldn't see in another Sarah J. Maas fantasy series. So that was, while it kept it fresh, it was also very different. So we follow Bryce and Hunt. He is a kind of enslaved angel, and she is half fae, half human. And she finds that her friends have been murdered by something. And to very long story short, her and Hunt are kind of buddy copped together to find out who killed her friends. And it's a wild 800-page ride of mystery and romance and a little bit of thriller. And yeah, but it all revolves around who is this killer. And it takes you down leads and roads that you have to backtrack on of the characters and think you're going one way and then you're going another way. But yeah, there's a lot of creatures, angels and demons and shifters and wolves and fae and half fae. There's a lot here. And I did find, especially in the beginning, the world building to be quite overwhelming, because you get a lot of exposition in the beginning, and there's so much that honestly, I still don't think I have it all straight after 800 pages. I really did like Hunt. I grew to like Bryce, and it did make me cry in one scene. Yeah. Which you could see, you will see in the vlog if you're interested in that. But yeah, I'll read the others. So I gave The House of Earth and Blood 4.5 out of 5 stars. The Crescent City book 1, that was because I pulled the prompt to start a new series. So I took the opportunity to start that series. The next book I read was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which if you haven't heard of this book, yeah, it is the 5th book in the Hunger Games universe. And it is a YA dystopian fantasy. And I had no intention, this wasn't on my TBR, I had no intention of reading this book, because the 4th book, Songbirds and Snakes or whatever, President Snow's kind of journey to kind of what he was a big dud for me. I did not enjoy it. So I was thinking, okay, this series, the first 3 books are in its own thing, and it can't really be touched. It can't really be added on to after all these years. So I just kind of put it away, like, in my mind. And so when this came out, I was like, while I was intrigued by that it was Hamish, I did feel that it wasn't going to be for me. And then the Booktube hype got to me. And I was like, man, people are crying on live sprints reading this. I have to like see what's going on. So I was able to get it at the library, and I read it, and I really enjoyed it. It exceeded my expectations. So basically, if you don't know, Hamish is a victor from the first Hunger Games 3 books, and it's basically a prequel of his games. So we find out what he was like before, kind of like the tortured person we meet in the Hunger Games, which was really interesting because he's very different. Like, obviously the games messed him up badly, which is no surprise. You could tell that even before we got his backstory. But yeah, it's his games. And I'm not going to say any more than that, because he wins, so you know what that means. And yeah, there's a lot of repercussions even out of the arena for him in a big way. It did feel very familiar. I did feel like I was back in the original Hunger Games, while, I read them 15 years ago. So, and I read the original 3 like in a row and everything. So I wasn't like as locked in as I was back then. And and as invested as I was in the books as I was in the original 3, but I did really enjoy them. There were some very sad deaths, like very sad. Like, it did not make me cry though. Even like the ending, I was largely unaffected by the ending, which seems weird considering like how emotional people got around it. But yeah, I guess I wasn't that big a fan of Lenora Dove. I think she was a bit foolish. And that might be a controversial opinion, but I think she was a bit foolish, and I'm not a big fan of her. So yeah, so I guess I won't say anymore. But she wasn't my favorite character. Let's put it that way. So I gave Sunrise on the Reaping 4 out of 5 stars. The next book was Someone I Used to Know by Paige Toon. And this is a romance, and I read this because my prompt was ugliest cover. The cover wasn't hideous, but it was definitely the ugliest one that I had on my TBR. This book is basically about 3 friends, Emily, Theo, and George. George is living with Emily's family as a foster child, and Theo is their friend at school who is very privileged. And he's rich, let's put it that way. I don't know if privilege is the right term because he doesn't have a good family. But these 3 kind of interesting people that would never really seem to fit together become 3 best friends, and life happens. I don't know how to say this without giving stuff away. George has a sister that is in the system, but not with him, and that is a big deal for him. Emily is dealing with having all these foster siblings all the time, and she is their only biological child, so there's some frustrations there with her. And Theo has a very absent and unloving family, even though he has the best of everything material-wise. So yeah, they find solace in each other and go through a lot together. And then they don't. And years go by, and they something happens that brings them back into each other's lives. That's where I'll leave it at. So I feel like it had a lot of potential, but I will say that there were twists in the book that kind of made you feel tricked, and not in a good way. Like, I feel like it made the stakes seem higher than they actually were. But when you found out what the truth was, it's like, oh, so this isn't that big of a risk. Like, the stakes aren't as big as I thought they were, instead of maybe the other way around, which would be more entertaining. So that was a downfall of this book. So there were a few chapters where I was like, yes, this book's getting really good. Like, I have a lot of hope for this. But it didn't really like materialize very well. So I gave Someone I Used to Know 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I tried to read was The Savage and the Swan by Ella Fields. And this was a book I pulled because the prompt was no one on the cover, like a person not on the cover, no person on the cover, no people on the cover. There we go. No people on the cover. And this did not. And I have read her other book, the kind of like a duology, A King So Cold, which I enjoyed. And I thought this one actually seemed way more up my alley, which it's a romance fantasy, romantasy. It actually has Greek mythology inspired, Swan Lake inspired. So there's a lot here. And I didn't actually read this. This is my DNF. So basically it's this girl who is fae. There's fae, there's human, and then there's like a super fae kind of. And this girl is a princess of the regular kind of fae, I guess. And they're all at war with each other. And she's going to be married off to the human king to kind of strengthen their alliance against the super fae, who are kind of like picking them off, like village by village. And she like meets this soldier, super fae soldier, and they kind of like get to know each other. And at that point, I stopped reading. So I DNF'd it like 10%, and it just wasn't grabbing me. I had really high hopes for this book, so that was probably part of the problem. But yeah, I just feel like it became a chore. That's when I DNF a book. People are like, well, what percentage, whatever. But like when it starts feeling like a chore that I have to go back to the book, then I DNF it. Like, I mean, I try to be fair. Like, I'm not going to DNF something in the first chapter, but I do feel like when it starts like, oh, I need to read that book. I don't. DNF. So it just wasn't giving me a reason to come back to it, which was sad because I really wanted to like this book, but I DNF'd it at 10%. So the next book I read was Fahrehent 182 by Mark Hoppus. And Mark Hoppus is the co-founder, co-singer, bassist of Blink-182, which is a pop / punk/pop punk band, depending on what category you want to put them in. And yeah, so this is a memoir, music memoir, nonfiction. And I've always been a huge fan of Blink-182. I started going to their concerts before I could go to concerts by myself. So my aunt had to take me to my first Blink-182 concert. So I wasn't really surprised when Mark Hoppus came out with that he was writing a memoir because he had recently beaten cancer. So I think like after something like that, you do start, processing your life and thinking about your life. So I wasn't surprised that he wrote his memoir this time. And it really surpassed my expectations. I didn't have low expectations. I didn't really have any expectations, but it was amazing. I really loved it. I don't know if you're not into Blink-182, maybe there is nothing there for you. But if you are a fan of Blink-182, I really loved this. I learned so much more about the band, so much more about Mark and his struggles and his life, his struggles with anxiety, obviously his cancer diagnosis and treatment, struggles with the band breaking up twice. Tom was always my favorite member of Blink-182, but I do have less respect for him, which I'm sure was not Mark's intention. They are best friends again, but I do have more respect for Mark than I did before. Learned a lot about him, and I think I learned a lot about him as a person. So I respect him as an artist more than I have in the past. So I gave Fahrehent 182 5 stars. The next book I read was The Lonely Hearts Trivia Night by Lauren Farnsworth. This was pulled out of my prompt jar for my lowest rated read on my TBR. So I had extremely low expectations for this book. And it really surpassed them by a lot. So this book is about 5 lonely strangers who answer, or 4 lonely strangers, I guess, who answer an ad by a 5th lonely person to join a team for a pub quiz. So a trivia night. And they all come with their own baggage, their own problems. And yeah, they find friendship and community in their team. And they end up joining a competition. Instead of just the weekly thing that you do, whatever, there's actually a prize at the end. There's money prize, and they're just really involved in it. So yeah, these 5 people become friends and they rely on each other, and they also have disagreements and everything, and they all have their own lives going on that affect them being part of this group. They're also, I think it was cute that their team name was Red Hot Quizzy Peppers. I love a good trivia team name, so I thought that was pretty cute. I don't understand why this book got such low ratings, because it was giving Sally Rooney vibes to me, honestly. Because quite a few of Sally Rooney's books, not all of them, but some of them are this random group of people, and kind of how their lives intertwine, and all of their personal stuff as well. So I was really getting some Sally Rooney vibes, and that might be giving it too much credit, but that's kind of the vibes I got. All the characters are pretty flawed, which is nice because we all are in reality. And it delivered entertainment and a couple surprises I didn't see coming. So it kept me on my toes, and I just really enjoyed it. Plus, there's a lot of trivia in it. So if you actually are looking to get some trivia, it actually was pretty interesting, some of the trivia that was in the book. So I gave The Lonely Hearts Trivia Night 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, the last book I read in April was Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. But wait, Ashley, a couple days ago, you just said you were going to read that for your May TBR. True. Not to confuse things, but I read it already. I recorded that a few days before the end of April, and that was the end of my TBR. And I had time. I just blew through and devoured Say You'll Remember Me. So now it is technically in my April reading wrap up. So it is a romance. It's a very buzzy, which I'm sure you've heard of it, I'm sure. Very buzzy new romance book. And basically it's about Xavier and Samantha. He is my new book boyfriend. He is a new book boyfriend. Oh, book boyfriend Xavier, who is a vet, an animal vet, and he's so sweet with the animals. A grumpy animal vet who loves animals. So it's really cute that he's grumpy, but it's such a soft spot for animals and does the right thing for them. Because let me tell you, that opening scene of that book gave me anxiety until I knew what was going to happen. I was oh my God, right away, it had me hooked. This book had me hooked. Anyway, she brings in a kitten that needs help. They don't get off to the best start, but that's how they meet. She finds this kitten that needs help. They want to get to know each other better, but the problem is they live in Minnesota. I think it's Minnesota. And she's moving back home to Southern California because her mother is ill and needs help with her caretaking. So she is moving back home. So that presents a big problem for them. People talked about the triggers with the book with her mother and her mother's illness, and I totally understand that. But like honestly, like there were some triggers on the other side of this story for me. So he's still very much dealing with trauma from his childhood, and that affects the whole ongoing storyline of this book. So honestly, I thought this was going to be a slam dunk 5 stars, like from the very beginning. And yeah, so most of it was 5 stars throughout. But for me, it lost steam in the last quarter. Both Samantha has a very heavy present that can be tough to read for people, and Xavier has a very tough past that can be tough to read for people. So I think one of the reason like there are some mixed feelings on this book is because there is so much heavy stuff going on around in their orbit, which definitely I can understand. But having said that, I think I would have liked them to have like one on-page fight. I feel like they can't go through everything that they're going through and have gone through and not have like some kind of conflict, a fight on the page. I think one time it says, we argued for 20 minutes about something. Well, I wanted like a fight. Like I always say this. This was my problem with First Time Caller, even though First Time Caller is way less heavy than this book. But I'm like, Ashley, haven't they been through enough? They don't have to fight. Leave them alone. Leave them alone, Ashley. So yeah, but I did leave steam for me in the like last quarter of the book. I gave Say Or Remember Me 4.5 out of 5 stars. So I read 7 books this month, and that was 2,785 pages. My average time to finish was 6 days. The moods were mostly emotional, like some funny, reflective in there, and adventurous. And for page numbers, the majority, a heavy majority, 71% of my books were between 300 and 500 pages. And for nonfiction, this is very like typical for me. 86% were fiction and 14% was nonfiction, which is just one book for this month. So for genres, definitely the top ones were romance and contemporary, and the other ones all kind of broke out evenly. So that's all for this video. Had some really good reads and a DNF, which stinks because I was really excited about that book. Yeah, so please subscribe if you'd like to hang around more. And we also have twice a week, we have reading and productivity sprints. So we'd love to see you in there. There's been like a really good group forming in there. So I've really enjoyed chatting and sharing recommendations. It's not been good for my TBR, but it's been good for my soul. So yes, please stop in there and say hi. Yeah, and I already said subscribe, so please do that. Yeah, and that's all for this video. I'll see you next time. Bye.